So welcome to this video. My name is Alex, and this video is entitled Your Only Hope. Now, to some people that might sound like a negative statement, but in fact it is wonderful, wonderful news. The best news we could ever dream of, because hopelessness is a very, very dire situation. I mean, imagine you're walking out in nature one day and you fall down a well, and the moment you decide to give up hope that you can get out of that well, the moment you decide that you're never going to be found, then you sink into despair. And what keeps us going, what actually keeps us strong, and we need to stay strong, what keeps us strong is trusting that we can get out, trusting that we will be rescued. And that stops us from sinking into despair, and despair is an awful place to be in, and we don't want to go there. And I'm sure you're well aware of this. So some people talk about hope as, just pie in the sky, but actually hope keeps our hearts from sinking into despair. And a lot of people, looking at what's going on in the world, and people who are consuming all the media information, are beginning to feel very, very hopeless, feeling like there is nothing we can do. We are powerless in the face of all the changes that are happening, a lot of them against our will, all the changes that are happening in the world. And people are feeling there's nothing they can do, they're powerless. And of course, when you feel powerless to change something which is very unappealing, something you're not enjoying, something you really don't want, when you feel powerless to do anything about it, then understandably, that can generate a feeling of hopelessness. But the good news is, the best news in the world is that we are far from powerless. In fact, we are the ones who are giving our mind to the darkness. We are the ones who are giving our thoughts to the darkness, to this realm of negativity and hopelessness and pessimism. We give our minds there by believing what we're seeing in the world, believing what we're seeing in the media, and allowing all this information to cloud our vision of what the future holds. And this is the intention. This is what's being orchestrated in the media by the powerful people that run the media. They are orchestrating a vision that they want in your mind. They want you to take that vision into your mind like an operating system, and for that to be your worldview, and for you to get hopeless, to get pessimistic, to give up hope and feel despair. And why they want to do this? Well, that's a whole other video. We're not going to go into that right now. But the fact is, the media is terrorizing us. The media is terrorizing us. It's using fear to manipulate us, or using fear to control us, using fear to generate a dystopian atmosphere to our world. And it's all because the media has the power to get in here and make us think certain things are true. So the number one thing you have to do, the first thing you have to do, is stop looking at the media, because it's hypnosis. It's complete hypnosis. Stop looking at it. Stop thinking about the things you've seen in the media, or thinking about things that people have told you. All media, social media, it's all polluted with fearful visions, with ideas of future suffering and despair and hopelessness. Because at the same time, while all this information is being pumped into people's brains via the media, God is talking to us. God is giving us a completely different vision. And it's the vision we're all looking for, by the way. It's the vision of light, the vision of safety, the vision of protection, the vision of salvation. And many people in the past have rejected that, because they think, well, I don't need some future salvation. I've got this planet to live on. I've got all the things I like. I've got all my comforts around me. I've got money, I've got security, I've got friends, I've got all the good things in the world. So I don't need any spiritual security. I don't need anything extra. I'm in charge of my security. Well, what's happening now is that we're seeing that there's very little we're really in charge of, except internally. We're in charge of our internal reality. What happens in here, our emotions, our words, our behavior, that's what we're in control of. We're not in control of the government. We're not in control of the laws that are made, which might be unwelcome, or might be unappealing, or might be restrictive. We're not in charge of those. And so we have to remember where our freedom is. Our freedom is to give our mind and our heart to God, which is to put it in His capable hands, and that it takes us into His realm of light. We experience His realm of light when we simply turn our attention to God. That's all we need to do, turn our attention to God, and then we will perceive His light because He's real. And I'm not saying this from some religious conviction or something someone's told me or some books I've read. After 25 years of spiritual pursuit, meditation, cleansing, detoxing, fasting, healing, so many powerful, life-changing processes. And then I became a Christian at the age of 33, and I accepted Christ, and then even more powerful things happened, even more powerful transformations happened when I came closer and closer to Christ. So God is real, and God is where your mind belongs. You need God. You can't do anything without Him. You can't take care of this without Him, I promise you. Because you need your mind from where the light originates. You need your mind to be in that place, which is with God, which means trusting God, relaxing and not being afraid, because God is protecting you, leaving everything in God's hands. So trusting that you don't need to control everything, trusting you don't need to be afraid and build bunkers and build walls around you and stockpile your food, trusting you don't need to do any of those things, trusting that God is looking after you. The most powerful transformation happens in our life when we trust God completely. And that's what we all need to do. And we don't need to be looking into society. We don't need to be looking through the lens of the media into society, because of course we can go on the streets and see what's happening in the immediate vicinity around us, see for ourselves what's going on in town. But when we access the media as a viewing point on the rest of the world, we're getting a really distorted lens. We're seeing things through a really distorted lens. The media is not showing us an honest, accurate, transparent reflection of what's going on in the world. It's creating a vision of dystopia, a vision of misery, a vision where it's going to show us people giving up. It's going to show us people losing hope. It's going to show us people fighting. It's going to show us people treating each other awfully, and it's going to show us all those things because it wants those images in our mind so that we believe then the world is going to hell. We watch the media and we are convinced the world is going to hell because that's what the media is going to show us. The media is going to show us the world going to hell. But that's a hypnosis. We need to keep our mind out of the media, almost 100% if you can, and connect with the people around us. Strengthen them, strengthen each other, support each other, have fun with each other, laugh with each other, keep our spirits up. It's really important when we interact with other human beings, we get so much strength. And of course, ultimately, our true strength comes from God. The light that is meant to be in our mind, the light that's meant to be in our heart, comes from God. Again, a spiritual reality that we need to turn our mind towards, because our mind's got to be focused on something. If it's not focused on the media, it'll be focused on our thoughts, and we'll just be listening to our thoughts and watching our thoughts, these images in our mind from our thoughts going round and round and round, envisioning the future, envisioning what's happening, envisioning what we think might happen. So it's just like an internal TV screen. So if we're not watching it, we're watching it here. And watching it on the screens, on the real world screens, feeds this inner screen. And we pump that screen full of images that are coming from the outside screens. And so we carry around this TV channel, this bad news TV channel in here. And so we need to switch that off. We need to detox from that bad news channel and turn our mind to God and ask God to protect us. Ask God to bring safety into our heart. Ask God to give us what we need, to provide for us, because God is capable of providing for you. I promise you, I know this from first-hand experience. Ask God to provide for us. Ask God to keep our hearts light, keep our hearts full of joy. This is really, really important. Perhaps the most important thing in the face of all this bombardment from negativity and horrific images and disturbing images and dark thoughts, most of which are coming from the media, but also, affecting us by the collective thoughts that are in the human mind, all these dark thoughts coming towards us, all these dark ideas are bombarding us. And we need a shield. We need a shield that essentially it enables us to deflect all these ideas and put our attention on something else. Because as I said, our attention has to be on something. And so if it's on all those thoughts, then it can't be on the light. You can't perceive those two things at the same time. So we have to choose where to put our attention. Choosing where to put your attention is the highest practice of intelligence. And it's this intelligence that we have to put into practice. We have to integrate into our life so that we are practicing allowing the light to come into our mind, practicing turning our vision towards God's light, God's reality, God's truth of protection, safety, and salvation. And how does God save us? Well, of course, it's through the light of Christ. We all know this. Christ is like God's most vital gift to us. And the purpose of Christ, when we allow Christ into our heart, is that it purifies our heart. He purifies our heart. Christ is the only force, the only spiritual force in existence that is capable of fully purifying our heart. The Bible says perfect love casts out fear. And fear is like pollution in our heart. And the perfect love, which is Christ, which is God's kind of surgical tool to heal our hearts. Christ is like God's surgical tool, his most concentrated beam of light, which is Christ, purifies our heart from all darkness. It casts out all the fear. It brings light into every one of the deepest chambers of our heart where there is fear and insecurity and pain stored. The light of Christ illuminates all those places and allows this fear to be dissolved. It'll come up and we'll notice that we're afraid of this, we're afraid of that. Then we have to let it go and bring our heart back to a place of trusting God. Because we can't be afraid while we trust, especially while we trust in God. When you trust God completely, put everything in his hands, then you cannot be afraid. Trust is the antidote to fear. And we have to trust God, and then we will feel safe. We'll experience the reality of safety. And we're only safe when we experience the reality of safety. Because we can believe in anything, and we can give our life to Christ and give our heart to God and still be anxious and still be worried. So we have to give up the worries, we have to give up the anxiety to feel safe. And then we are safe. When you let go of the tension and fear which stops you relaxing, and you let your heart relax, then you actually feel safe. And this is what we all need more than anything else. We need to feel safe. It's really important. If we don't feel safe, then we can't really do anything of any great use. We can't really get what we need. Because our primary need, the most fundamental need we have, is to feel safe. It's the roots of the tree of our being. It keeps us grounded, it keeps us strong, it enables us to expand. So our security and feeling safe is vital, absolutely vital. So when we trust that God is protecting us, and of course our heart relaxes and we are not afraid. And we have to let our heart relax. We have to trust completely. Don't let a single little fear convince you in here to allow tension into your heart. Don't let even the smallest little fear convince you to act in fear, speak in fear, think in fear. Turn away from all those ideas of threat, all those ideas of fear. Turn away from them all. Know that they are lies. And turn to God. And speak to God. Even if you don't know or believe if God is there, be humble. Take a risk. Take a leap of faith and speak to God and see what happens. Because you don't want to be wrong. You don't want to refuse to speak out to this force which is actually there and wants to interact with you. If you refuse to believe that force is real and you cannot interact with it, you can't interact with something which you believe is not there. So you've got to find out if it's there. And you will find out because God responds to you. Again, after 15, 20 years of knowing God, coming closer and closer to God, through through the process of spiritual illumination, not through reading a book or not through believing anything, but through the process of giving up my fear, trusting more, coming closer and closer to God, then I can tell you with complete authority that God is everything we're looking for, everything we need. He's our rock of safety, and we will feel safe when we trust God completely and we don't listen to that voice of fear. We have to learn when that voice of fear is speaking to us and ignore it and stop looking at any fearful information. Focus on God's promises. Focus on God's protection, providence, and let Him fill you with joy. This is the antidote to misery and pessimism. Joy. Let God fill you with joy. There is no reason to be afraid, no reason to be negative. We can celebrate. We can be happy. We can be so relieved. We should celebrate in relief. We should be so relieved that the threat is imaginary, that we can be protected, or that we can realize the truth, which is the threat is imaginary and it's in here. So it's such a relief to realize that you've been imagining your own worst nightmare for a long, long time. And the media now is encouraging us to bring that vision right into the forefront of our mind and dwell upon it, dwell upon this nightmare of darkness and suffering and misery and dystopia, blah, blah, blah. You know, zombies and aliens. The media hypnosis is so deep, and it's going to convince us of some very peculiar things if we're not careful, and it is convincing us. A lot of people. So it's all a theatre of lies to keep you in fear and to stop you being joyful, stop you being empowered by God. God empowers us with His joy. I think it says in Nehemiah in the Bible, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is our strength. So it's really important to allow joy to replace anxiety. Allow joy to replace worry about the future or, anxious feelings. We can replace everything that makes us feel weak with all the things that make us feel strong. It's really important to relax as well. It's really important to relax your body because tension actually weakens us. We think resistance makes us stronger, but actually tension, which is resistance, by the way, when we resist something, we're in tension. Tension weakens us. It makes us stiff and rigid, and cracks appear in our foundation. So it's very good. It's very important to be relaxed, open, and trusting. Because when you trust, then you relax. Those two things go hand in hand. And when you're safe, you relax. So relaxation is at the core of all of this. When we relax, we trust that we're safe. And it enables us to experience God's protection. Because if we're trying to protect ourselves, then we won't experience His protection. If we're trying to convince ourselves in here that we're safe because of the X, Y, and Z, because we've stockpiled food, because we've got a bunker in our back garden, blah, blah, blah. If we're trying to convince ourselves that we're safe because of those things, then we won't see God's safety, which is above all of these things. God can do miracles, and God will do miracles when you trust Him. Trusting in Him is the key, and relaxing, trusting that you're in His hands, and He will look after you, and He'll provide for you, and He'll protect you. So this is the message we need to remember every day, all day long, because if we keep looking at our screens, which I don't recommend, things are going to look a lot darker. The media will be showing you people giving up hope. It will be showing you people fighting in the streets. It will show you bloodshed. It will show you scenes of misery and extreme dystopia, terrifying things probably. Do not watch it. Do not let that poison into your mind, because it's all hypnosis to get you believing in the darkness. You need to believe in the light and trust in the light, which is God. So, thank you for listening to this talk. I wish you well, and God bless you.